Hi, and welcome back to the second part of the interview with Mars. We will continue with the rest of the questions. Question 8. Have you got any good or bad experiences from the earlier time of the site's existence that you still remember and that you want to tell us about?
Not really on the earlier times, because at the beginning it was a very small community, but when it grew after 2003 there were a lot of trolls and people hiding behind their keyboards and just spreading bullshit. It was a difficult time, I remember, particularly in 2005, but not before that.
Next question. You founded Suntrip Records. How did that come to happen, and did it have to do with the Sinus.org forum? And regardless if yes or no, how does it come that Sinus.org and Suntrip are not closer intertwined if both are created by you?
Yeah, that one is for me. It was thanks to Sinus, actually. Back in 2000, there were still good parties, but very few Goatrance parties. We are struggling to find those parties, and there was this party with the Infected Mushroom, Talamasca and Banzi, I think, in Paris. And I announced on Side News, hey guys, there is this party, if you want to come, there is space in my apartment to sleep afterwards, just meet us at Place d'Italie on the evening of the party. And it was very surprising. Children was here with me and we saw 15 people arrive. So there were people from the UK, there was Guy and late Daniel. There were, from Belgium we had Anubis and his girlfriend. We had plenty of people from France. So we went to that party and it was nice to meet in real life for once. After that I discovered there were still many more Goatrance parties in Belgium than in France, so we started partying in Belgium, where Anubis was starting to play seriously. And after a while we got the idea to organize a party by ourselves. So in June 2002 we had this memorable Sinus summer launch party, and there were a lot of people from Sinus there. We started at 6 in the evening and we stopped at 2 in the afternoon, I guess. And after that party, after we cleaned up on the grass next to the party place, we had this idea to maybe create a label to share our vision about Goatrance, because we saw with this party that Goatrance hadn't said its last word. So it stayed like a good idea in the back of our heads for a while, and then things got into place like a miracle. So Yanis started his Filteria project. He was still a kid there, and he sent us a few tracks, and they were not sounding so great at the time, until the time he had his first party in Stockholm, and there he did the track Stars, which is featured in his first album. And when we heard it, we thought, okay, now is the time. So it's funny to see that Suntrip Records was created mainly by 3 people from Sinus. And I will be eternally grateful for that. So there was this question you asked, RTP, was why are they not more closely intertwined? Yeah, a few things happened. At the same time we wanted to create Suntrip, children disappeared, and then I had a girlfriend and I had started working. It was too much for me to keep Sinus running and develop Suntrip at the same time and take care of everything else in my life, so I had to make choices.
What changes did you see in the psytrance scene and in the online community over time? How did you react to those changes? What was your feeling about them? Is there anything you would have done differently, looking back in retrospective?
Well, I can think of two changes. First, the musical change, going from Goatrance to um, minimal to full on to progressive to a bit of everything. I was very disappointed in the past to see festivals which would only feature one sub-style of psytrance, whereas it has completely changed now. It's very common to see forest nights and maybe progressive or full-on days and Goatrance evenings or Goatrance mornings. So I really like that now. We saw the turning point. It started in 2006, but we saw the turning point around 2010 when Suntrip artists started being invited in big festivals. Another change I can think of was the more people were connected to the internet, the more trolls or fights we had on online communities. And I was really not the right person to handle that. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of split from News and I handed it over to guys like Nemo, who is now gone too, and a few other motivated guys to moderate the communities. If I could do it again, I would hand it over earlier, actually.
Up next, my favorite. Is there anything you'd predict for the future of psytrance music or for the online communities that are devoted to psytrance?
Well, I'm afraid Facebook has swallowed pretty much the whole community. Everyone is talking through groups or through their walls. And it's not a bad thing, but whenever they are looking for reviews, for instance, Facebook cannot provide such kind of information, or not in a place where everything is, all of them are gathered. Maybe Discogs does, in a way. So I'm afraid the communities are like News are shrinking, but may still provide some relevant information for those looking for very specific types of information.
Question number 12. It's not only hard to create something that lasts, it's also hard to take a step back off of it. Or, in better words, let it fly on its own. Do you want to share what happened that made you do the decision to be less involved?
It happened gradually. First in 2003, children disappeared, and we were already working on the Suntrip ID. I had a girlfriend, I had a job that was taking a lot of time, so it was harder and harder. Although in the previous year I had started to develop a complete overhaul of the site, it never went through, and I just lacked the time, and motivation was not enough. Then in the beginning of 2006 there were all those fights on the Sinus forum, and I realized that
Whatever happened to children? Why did he disappear? And how was he doing with music, scene, life and everything since he left here?
he will probably tell you better than me, but from my point of view, Chiron was very passionate about Goatrance. He would spend 2 or 3 hours every day working on News, and he was also a shy guy. He was still living with his parents. He would only go to parties whenever I was with him, and when he met the girl who would become his wife later, I think something cracked. He realized that he had spent too much time on News, and okay, he disappeared suddenly, but we managed to get to talk about it a couple of months later, And then it's a bit too bad we didn't stay in touch. He had kids very fast, so in retrospect I understand he didn't have any more time to dedicate to Goatrance. We talked recently, thanks to this interview, and now his kids are big, and I hope we can talk about Goatrance and maybe even see each other in the near future.
Number 14. What was the last Psytrance party that you attended? If you were there by invitation, then please allow for one more. What was the last Psytrance party you attended as an ordinary guest?
It's easy. 3 weeks ago we had the release party for the new MFG album on Suntrip Records. It was organized by All This Gold in Antwerp, Belgium. And we had a blast. Obviously I was invited, so the previous one I attended as an ordinary guest was ZNA Festival in Portugal last August. It's a Goatrance festival.
And now, the last question. Sanius has come a long way, but we may have to adjust a little for the future. Is there anything you'd like to give us and our members, and even the non-members, on the way up to the next 20 years? Well, let's hope there will be 20.
Yeah, maybe. Scinews can still thrive on its core asset, the CD reviews. We have a very strong and devoted community, extremely motivated members who spend lengthy hours detailing, reviewing, and detailing tracks minute per minute. This is something that no social network can provide. Social network are just using hearts or thumbs up, thumbs down, and Scinews is really providing a lot of extra value with those. However, I think the community has to get more attention, and for that it needs to be more intertwined with social networks to get more attention, more traction. That would be my advice. So thank you, and see you on the dance floor.
That concludes our interview. Thank you, Fabien, for participating, and thank you for listening. I hope that we will be back soon with more content. See you around.